Restoring human dignity is one of those things that can feel really heavy, and as do many things that I talk about, but in this particular instance and how I'm going to frame it, it's really quite uplifting and wonderful and lovely. Livestream, what we're talking about, this show has to do with how we can restore human dignity through engaged conversations, aka storytelling, which, as you know, if you've been following along with myself and the Legacy Recorder, you know that storytelling is like the core and the crux of all the things. Restoring human dignity, how we do this through engaged conversations and storytelling. There are a number of ways to create engaged conversations, whether we're creating them with family members, if we're creating them with people who we have never met before, and how we do create those conversations is really indicative of how that person that you're talking to is going to feel when the conversation is done. Over the last few years since I started on this wild and crazy, wonderful journey that I embarked on when I started creating the Legacy Recorder, I've had, I'm going to say thousands, I feel like thousands, a ton, so many conversations where people just share their stories with me. They immediately feel a rapport, they feel comfortable, I set them at ease, and they know that at the end of the conversation, they're going to feel better, regardless of what they're sharing with me. And there isn't going to be any judgment, there isn't going to be any, well, you should have done this. I won't give them advice unless they specifically ask. And all of those feelings, all of those things go into this big pot. That's a really bad metaphor, but it all lends into helping create this feeling of value and that we're valuing the other person's human experience. So one of the ways I do this with people and train people on how to do this for someone else is in an instance where we're taking volunteers, in this case, university students, and they go in and work one-on-one with care residents over the course of a semester and help someone tell their life story. Now, it's the end product, which is what everyone wants to know about. The end product is a book that I put together for the resident, and it's something that the resident is able to hold on to, pass on to their family, however they want to use it. And it's generally something that is cherished and loved, and it's used to inform care plans, it's used to reconnect with staff, and it gives the resident a piece of themselves in a very tangible way that's really just theirs. So for the students, when I train them each semester, it varies depending on the size of the group and which facility and a number of different variables. But the core of that training is how we start these conversations with people we've never met, with people we don't know, and how do we show the other person that we're valuing their experience and that they're safe and that it's okay to talk to us. And so that is really where this training part comes in. And the ways I like to encourage people and the students to use storytelling is that the benefits are being able to connect with someone else, you're deepening relationships, you're broadening your worldview and the person who's sitting across from you. You're working to help restore that person's dignity if it's been lost. It hasn't been lost in every case. And then one of the last things I wanted to talk about tonight in particular was the inspiration of hope and the idea that when we talk about something we're passionate about, when we're able to share a piece of ourselves with someone else, we generally get a little bit fired up about it. All of a sudden there's new possibilities, there's new ways we could do this thing that we've always wanted to do, or whatever it is. Maybe it was a profession someone had previously, and because of health reasons or whatever the case might be, they're now unable to do that, and they haven't been working towards being able to do that again, and they had lost hope that this was even an option. Through these conversations, we're able to remind that person what they were passionate about, what they were excited about with that previous profession or previous hobby or whatever it might be. And they're then able to go on and say, I want to do this thing, which is really amazing. And that's just one specific example of or I guess it's kind of general and vague, but one example of how this engaged conversation, this engaged storytelling restores human dignity and restores that piece of a person that might have been lost in this care transition that happens when people go into care facilities. One of the ways that I do this training is having the students do a storytelling exercise. It's very specific. So it uses the legacy storytelling method, which is a really specific way of extracting a story from someone else. And it focuses on the 5 W's, which are who, what, why, when, and where. So those are like, and why. And the last one's why. So it's the 5 W's. And that question for me is, why did that moment happen? So when you have basic conversation off of those questions, that's the beginning of the conversation. You're gathering your facts. And then the next set of questions is really digging into the memory or digging into the moment. So we're talking about feelings, we're talking about emotions, we're talking about why a person picked that moment to talk about, to remember. And then the last question is really focused on, what do they want people to remember about that moment? Here's my theory behind those questions. And this part's important. So the first set of questions obviously is the fact part. So when we're thinking about moments and storytelling and being able to talk about something, it's generally easier for people to start with easy questions, things they don't have to think about. So it, for the most part, is probably going to be pretty easy for them to remember who they were with, where they were. When might be a little more complicated, depending on the person's ability. What happened, that part they hopefully will be able to remember, and then why the moment happened. So the why question is a little weird, just because it's more of, it starts digging into the lead up part. So what were the series of events? How did they get to that moment? Or why did it happen? Did it happen because someone died? Was someone born? Did someone get married? Like, how did this particular instance of their life, how did they come to that point? And so those questions are really a lot easier for people to answer. And once we get through that part of the conversation, by that time, you've probably had some anecdotal stuff go back and forth. You've had a little bit of a conversation. There's been an exchange, and the person is hopefully feeling comfortable. If you're giving off the right vibe and the right energy, and you're not shard and blah 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 blah. Okay, so being engaged. We want engaged, active listening. So that is how that first part goes. And then the second part, the emotional part, asking about the feelings and how they were, how the emotions were impacting them in that moment. Those questions are then building a little bit more of the rapport and giving them an opportunity to dig into the memory and share a more rounded view, like a fuller picture of what that moment looked like in their life. So how do they feel about that moment? How did they feel in that moment? How do they feel about it now? Did it impact them? All of those types of questions are really great initial questions, follow-up questions, and ways to show the other person that we care about how they were feeling, how they feel now, and that really shows how we value the other person's human experience, and it really goes a long way towards that human dignity component. So, trying to remember my own questions. So then the why did we pick this moment? So the theory behind the why do we pick this moment question is really to encourage the person to be self-aware and self-identify as to why that moment was important to them and why it was so important that they share it. And usually when we ask that question, the next part of the conversation is, it might go off in a tangent, it might show something a little different, but most likely it'll bring up possibly new parts of the memory, definitely more information about the person that you're talking with. And it'll show some of what their values are that you can use to inform future conversations if that's something that is going to happen for you. And that's really what that question does. It just digs in a little bit to what that person's like, what they think about, how their brain works, and again, underlines that deepening relationships and restoring dignity. So the last question that I recommend people ask, and that is part of the legacy storytelling method, is what do they want people to remember about this moment? Now, again, same idea. It'll tell you a lot more about this person, the way they answer, the words they use, and their body language as to how they're feeling right now when they're answering this question. And it really gives them a chance to give their opinion. It's maybe an opportunity to give advice, which is, for most people, almost immediately empowering. They might sit up straighter, they might smile wider, they might get serious, but they're going to have some sort of shift. In my experience, that's what's happened. And it's really cool to see that shift, and it's fun to watch their body language and see when that shift happens. So that is a storytelling conversation that you can have with someone that will work towards restoring their human dignity and inspiring hope. And it'll deepen a relationship you previously had. It'll help you connect with someone. And for both participants, it will broaden both worldviews. And you'll have an opportunity to have that back and forth conversation that is just really incredible for partnerships, for familial relationships, for volunteer relationships, and reconnecting with staff, etc. So to recap, I talked about how we use storytelling to connect, deepen relationships, broaden worldviews, restore dignity, inspire hope, and how this is all done through engaged conversations. And we also went through the legacy storytelling method, what that looks like, and the theory behind each section. So if you're watching the replay, thank you so much for making it through all the way. And for everyone who came through on the live, I sincerely appreciate it. I have no idea what we're going to talk about on the next episode, but I sincerely appreciate that you were here and you took the time to watch this one. If you have any questions at all, feel free to put them in the comments. April 1st kicks off the Get Her Story Challenge. I will put a link to that in the comments. It's an opportunity to use the storytelling method I just outlined and create a unique story gift with a woman you love, whether it's your mom, your aunt, your grandmother, a friend, whoever it is. We're going to take the month of April and create an incredibly unique story gift that will be complete and ready for May. So if you're interested in that, you can check it out at the link below. And that's it for me. So I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week, and I will see you on the next episode of Legacy After Dark. And in the meantime, happy writing.
You've been watching an episode of The Legacy Lady talking possibly Legacy After Dark, and this is it. This is the end of the video. I would love if you would subscribe, and even better, share this video with someone you love. I will see you on the next video, and in the meantime, happy writing.